Hello, welcome to another Monday Night live stream, and this one's already got technical issues, so we'll see how the night goes. It looks like Grish was here earlier. I'm not sure if he's still here. My chat is broken because the way I do my virtualization stuff, always breaks it. I'm looking over here to see if it's maybe rebooted yet, but it's not been rebooted yet. So, yeah. Anyway, hopefully, sometime soon, I could start making some changes to my setup and get a little bit more maybe consistency or reliability out of the stuff that I have. And maybe someday I'll get a backdrop. Who knows? Anyway, Joe is here, and I keep looking at the screen for the chat message, and of course, it's not there. So, but Joe is here. Welcome in, Joe. I know Tony said he would not be making it live tonight, so he'll be watching tomorrow. So, Tony, hello. So, it looks like there are 5 viewers here, 4 likes. That's great. Let's do the usual check of stats. It will not be anywhere close to what I would prefer or have had, actually. Currently, I'm at 2,817 watch hours. So even though I streamed last Monday, my ratings or my views have apparently plummeted over 100. My subscribers are 1,674, which is up, but yeah, my watch hours are down. So, whatever. It is what it is. I'm not here to become monetized. So, be great if I was, but obviously that's not my goal. Joe says 2.5 hours in the dentist chair today. Ooh. What did you have done? That doesn't sound... I've never been in the chair for more than an hour, so... interesting. Alonzo Smith is here. Welcome in, Alonzo. And I am going to force reboot my virtualization box because I think that's only way we're going to get chat back on the air. If you don't remember, my CG machine is actually in my virtualization cluster, and for some reason it just decides that it's done. I haven't really figured it out yet. I also haven't tried anything newer than a really old card, so it could be the card itself is bad. Wouldn't surprise me. The card's, gosh, 8 years old. I think it is. So yeah. Oh, so Joe got a crown today. Ooh, that sounds lovely. Still no reboot on the virtualization thing. That's interesting. Anyway, so what are we talking about today? We're going to talk about what a V1 or a video engineer level 1 really does or means. I'm assuming most of you probably have never heard that term before, but if you've been around television broadcasting, specifically remote television broadcasting, I'm sure you've heard of A1, V1, EIC, all those terms, and so we're going to discuss those today. Grish says, hello everyone. Grish is terminating cable right now at his brother's house, but listening in. White, orange, orange, white, green. Wait, no. I think I already screwed it up. Don't listen to me. I haven't terminated cable in, gosh, it's probably been 2 years. Well, maybe not quite 2 years. Whenever I ran this cable, so a year ago. Jeremy says, nope, never heard of V1. So we'll explain that. Jacob's here. So, all right. So what is a V1 and why was I a V1 the other day? So as my last stream, we talked about doing freelance sports, and I was doing high school football, or I am doing high school football this fall. And so I am the V1 on a statewide broadcast. So, what is V1? Well, V1 is Video Engineer 1. There are sometimes multiple video engineers. So, a V1 is the lead video operator. You might have a V2, or you might have several V2s. Likewise, for audio, there's an A1 who is actually the guy or person mixing the audio, and then there's there's an A2 who's like an assistant, but there's also could be several A2s. I've done some bigger productions where there was an A2 on the field, and there was an A2 in the booth, and an A1 in the truck. And I've been on productions where there's been a V1, a V2, and then that was it. So there's like 2 video guys, 3 audio guys or people. There could be 8 camera people. It just depends. Jeremy says, so I was right. I was there. I was orange, white, orange, green, white, yeah, blue. Ooh, my virtualization server is rebooted. Can I get graphics back yet? That's the question. Is it actually back up? No, it's not. Okay. Anyway, so for smaller productions, there's only typically a V1, there's an A1, and there's almost always an A2, just because there's a lot more to set up. So what is that entitle, or what is the V1's day entitle? Well, in my case, having to drive on site, and in this case it was a high school, so there wasn't a lot of parking, so we actually parked on the street, which I had to go find a parking space. So then you show up at crew call, which in our case was 2 p.m. Everybody helps unload the truck, and let me show you what this truck looks like. So here is the truck. This was, of course, after we'd already done a lot of the setup, but this truck doesn't actually carry a lot of gear. It carries, this is the control room, if you will, and there is some cabling on this truck, but really there's a separate van, if you will, truck type of thing that carries all the equipment. So you unload the equipment, and then you start setting up, and that involves running cables. So in this case, we parked underneath the bleachers, and so our cable run was basically straight up. A lot of times in these high schools, they let you park really close to the press box, and therefore makes your cable running that much easier. Speaking of cable runs, we then had to go kind of slightly to the right from where the truck was, and we had extra cable. So I, in being a good steward of cable and people's safety, actually attached, if you will, temporarily, attached the wire bundles to the wall or to the fence, and then we put down what we call yellow jackets, which is that yellow and black thing you see down there, and that's so people can walk over our cables and not trip. So this is probably where I should go into a little bit of a tangent, if you will, or a public service announcement about cable runs. And this is a true story. Welcome in, A. So yes, when I first learned how to do live shots 21-ish years ago, I was trained by a guy who, everybody knew. He was very, very popular in the broadcasting, in the city that I live in, and so I was very happy to learn from him. Everybody knew him. He was famous, kind of, if you will, and it was probably the first or second day. It was very early, and he said, "Always make sure you run your cables properly. Don't just throw them out there. Don't just, lay them out in the ground and not be mindful of where your cables go." And I said, okay, okay, I'll follow that, but, why? Or what's the story behind this? Because you're very passionate about this. I could just tell from him. His name was Sayed, and Sayed was, you will do this, you will do this, like in a very, I think he was Iranian, Palestinian, Iraqi. I forget exactly what his country of origin was, but he was, he was very adamant. You will run your cables like this. Do not do this. Don't do this. And I was like, okay, again, why? What's the? And he said, because you could trip somebody and they could hurt themselves. And I said, okay, that makes sense. And then he goes, well, he didn't really tell me so much. I think it was basically someone else told me like the next day that basically he had run cables into a supermarket, from what I was told. I forget if it was a supermarket or not, but either way, he ran cables and he did not tape them down. He did not use Yellow Jackets. He did not use the best path. He used the shortest path, and the shortest path is rarely the best path to take because it probably means you're causing a trip hazard. So he's at the supermarket or wherever he's at, and this lady falls. She's older. She goes into the hospital. She ends up passing away from her injuries. Her family sued the station and the company, and they won. So not only did a lady die, which is of course sad, but then there were financial repercussions. I don't know if he got suspended or not, but he probably did. He didn't get fired, but I mean, an 80-something-year-old lady passed away because he took the shortest path, not the best path. So I've always remembered that, when you're running cables, do not take the short path. Do not take the easiest path. Take the best path, which often means doing more work, because you have to make sure that situations like this, where this is how you run cables. You do not cross a walkway without taping them down or using a Yellow Jacket. And this is for the press box. So there weren't a lot of people up here. This wasn't a public path, if you will, but the coaches were going to walk through here. There were students who were going to walk through here to get to their box. So they could trip. And if they tripped on your cables and you didn't tie them up right, or you didn't have trip hazards, they can and will sue you. They could also die. So, be careful, take the time. And as I always point out, I wasn't working for myself in this company or this day. I was working for somebody else. I'm a representative of that company. They could be sued. I could be sued. It would be a bad day either way. So, this is kind of a long little rant, public service announcement, but I know several of you on here run cables for your job, or in Grish's case, is terminating cables right now. Just be mindful, take the extra step or two, and make sure you do them properly. That's all. So, thank you for the public service announcement. All right, let's see here. Who else is here? Alonzo, I think I said hello to you. Jeremy's back. A says yes to the Yellow Jackets. Kevin, welcome in, Kevin. Long time no see. Still got to figure out a way to get you on the stream sometime. Kevin knows all about cable management. I'm pretty sure the same guy taught me that also taught Kevin how to run cables. Because Kevin and I used to work at the same station, briefly. Let me see if my fonts are back yet, because I really want to make these graphics work again. It's not so much, I don't think, that you guys care to see your name on the screen, but it helps me kind of, read the question and respond appropriately. So I'm trying to get that figured out. Joe says, cover your cables, someone could die. That is a t-shirt. That could be a thing. Joe says, I usually act like the C1. I usually lay on the cable. Yeah. It does sound like a low pay, no pay, volunteer kind of position. Joe says, we got some cable carpets recently with rubber bottom that are actually working well for non-dirty spots. Make graphics great again. I'm not going to touch that one. Yeah, so rubber mats are great. Basically, it was explained to me that anything you can do to help avoid a trip hazard is going to go a long way to defending you in court. So anything you can do to say, hey, there's a trip hazard here, I would do it. All right, is this going to work? Hey, look, we have graphics. Yay! Yes, I do love the photos online, the Facebook photos where there are cable ramps and the cables go under it or around it or over it or whatever. Always a good time and makes me cringe. I would run for president if I could get enough signatures. I don't think I could, but I would totally run for president. Oh, wait, sorry. I would be president. I don't want to run for president. I just want to, I would be president if I got enough votes. So I think all of you should write my name in, and then therefore, at the end of the, after the election, we can go through and see how many votes I actually did get. That'd be fun. Lower thirds for the win. So yeah, so I guess we go back to the cable thing. So, let's go back to this. And so, so what I said, yes. So basically, we showed up, we unloaded the truck, we started running cables. Where do we run cables to? So in this case, this is the booth, and so the basic thing video does is sets up these two monitors, typically a program monitor or what is on the air, and then there's a ISO monitor, which kind of goes to the color commentator and can be used to show them a different camera feed or stats. Can be used for various things. Not quite sure what actually in this case was going to the ISO feed because there's no telestrator, which would be one thing that would go to the ISO feed. I think it was just literally the same feed going to both, but it was at least plugged into the truck and was routable. So if we had to change something, we could. Again, I don't think we ever did. One thing you also see here is the 3 audio boxes that are used for the commentators. There was only 2 people commentating, but there's always a spare. So obviously audio is a key part of any broadcast. And so the A2 typically would run these audio malts up to the boxes and plug these headset things in. I forget the brand on these. I'm sure Kevin could probably know exactly what brand these are. But basically these allow the commentators to listen to the truck, listen to each other. They can cough, they can mute their mics so if they have to cough. They have individual volume controls for themselves and the truck. Kevin doesn't actually remember. Okay, I figured you've seen enough of those that... Coffee, hold on a second. I swear this COVID crap or whatever the hell it is I had could go away anytime. I probably have a picture somewhere. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Probably from last year's, maybe. I don't see pictures from last year either. Okay. Never mind then. Well, if you're interested, you want to know what they are, I'll try to get a picture next week. Anyway, so another thing that video does, besides running the 2 monitor feeds, is set up a clock cam. And the clock cam is important for 2 things. Basically, it is a confidence feed of the data feed. So there's basically a data feed we get from the scoreboard That's what makes, goes into the score bug graphic you see at the bottom of the screen. This is a confidence feed so that we can confirm that that data is correct. It's also a backup in the event that the data feed goes away. The TD can crop out elements of this scoreboard shot and put them on the screen as a backup to the clock feed. So preferably we'd have a data feed, but if that doesn't work, then we have this clock feed. And this booth was interesting because there was no good place to put this clock camera, so I had to put it in the window as low as I could. A lot of times there's like a platform, for the cameras that you can attach this to. In this case, there were no camera platforms. And so speaking of cameras, here's what a camera looks like. Now, these are not your typical cameras that you see or people shooting with. These are very expensive Sony cameras with Canon lenses that has a 60 times zoom, essentially. These things can zoom in a lot and be crystal clear because it's optical. It's not digital zoom. So now, as the video operator, I actually did not have anything to do with these cameras in terms of setting them up. Each camera operator is responsible for setting their own camera up, and typically they run their own video cable too. In this case, it's Triax, which is basically coax inside of coax, and they're heavy cables. There's also the newer cameras use SMPTE fiber, and that's fiber with coax kind of around it, or I shouldn't say coax, but some sort of metal braid around it that provides power. So in this case, it's a heavy-duty coax cable, all copper, and so this is what the camera is set up. Now, like I said, the video person doesn't actually set this up. The camera operators do. And just so you can kind of see the view, this is what the view was from that camera position. And we had 3 of these cameras for this game. 2 of them were up, top of the bleachers, last row possible. 1 was in the end zone. And then we had a handheld camera that roamed the sidelines on the home side or this side of the stadium and could get that, that straight-on shot of the ball on the 1st and 1 or the 4th and 1, whatever, or they could go down the other end zone and get a couple deep passes kind of things. So this production had 4 cameras. I believe last year when I ran video for the playoffs, we had 5 cameras. So we added 1 at the other end zone as well. So you typically can shoot a football game with 4 cameras or 5 preferably. Is probably the lowest that you would want to do anything of high level. I've shot football games with as few as 2 cameras. It doesn't always work the best, but it can be done. But in this game, like I said, we were doing 4. Kevin says, I'm still waiting for Jay to open his own production truck company. I thought about it at one point. The university that I do work at was trying to figure out how to up their game, and they didn't want to pay for people. So I was entertaining the idea of being a crewer or being a production company, and basically they write me a check, and then I'd go find people. But that's hard to do when you have a day job. All right, so where does all these feeds go? So they all go to the I/O panel on the truck. So this is the I/O panel. This is underneath. So this is that first bay next to the tire. So you see the 2 tires on the left-hand side. That first bay is the I/O panel. Here you can see 4 cameras being plugged in. Those are the black thick cables on the lower left. The 2 orange cables that are next to each other, those are for the booth. In this shot, the clock camera was not plugged in because we had issues with the clock camera. And so, if you don't know, SDI video can only go 328 feet. So I had plugged in a cable that said 300 feet. And apparently that 28 feet, that in theory was it still had, must have been used up inside that truck, because by the time it actually got to the frame sync inside, or the device that basically ties in external sources to the truck, it was not working. It would work most of the time, but then it would just glitch out. So we ran a second cable. So I ran essentially now 4 cables. And the second camera, or second feed, did the exact same thing as the first one. So what I think is, my guess, there's 2 things it could have been. I don't really know what was the actual answer. A lot of times in these sporting events, you don't have time to troubleshoot everything. You basically just got to make it work. And as long as it works, you don't really investigate why it didn't work. So the clock camera is plugged into, it's an HDMI output. So the HDMI output gets plugged into, in this case, a Blackmagic HDMI to SDI converter. And then it runs via SDI down to the truck. The truck then goes into the truck through, I believe it was a Sony. No, it was a Harris. It was a Harris frame sync, which I don't think they even. I honestly don't think Harris. I mean, I don't think they even make stuff anymore. I think they've been out of the business for a while. So I think I can oops. So this is the rack of equipment, and basically in the second row from the left, there's a bunch of identical looking boxes. Those are the frame syncs. When it was going there, it was breaking up. So the question is are those not as good, or is the Blackmagic HDMI to SDI converter the problem? You tell me where the problem was. I'm going to go with the Blackmagic converter, and probably the fact that it can't drive a 300-foot run like it's supposed to. But either way, we didn't actually need the feed. We didn't, the data feed we had worked the entire time, but we did notice before the game that the clock was jumping, and we were like, wait a minute, why is it jumping? Is that the data feed? And we were able to use the camera feed to confirm that the data feed was jumping on the scoreboard as well. Turns out these newfangled sports, scoreboards use iPads to do all the stuff. And apparently if the window is open on the iPad, it jumps around. I don't know. The window in the room, was blocking the iPad from getting the Wi-Fi signal. That's what it was. I'm sorry. So the Wi-Fi controller couldn't control the clock because the window was closed. But we saw that through the clock cam that it was breaking up, or not breaking up, it was jumping in reality, but also at the data feed. Any questions? So this is not a new truck. I don't know how old this truck actually is. That's a good question. I've seen this truck for some time, so I want to say it's maybe 10 years old, 8 years old. Yeah, Kevin's worked in that truck before for high school football. Yeah, it had to be a Blackmagic. Kevin, do you know how old that truck is? I know you worked in that before. I'm really curious. But I did ask. So I did ask how often this truck was used, and basically it's used for all of football season, basketball playoffs or championships, I mean, and then I think it used for one event, maybe one or two other events throughout the year. So it's not used very often. Probably, I'm guessing if you take all of high school football plus basketball, 20 times a year. It might do stuff on Thursday too. I can't remember if it does Thursday and Friday, but either way, it's only used like 20 weeks out of the year. So, and the guys who run this truck, I've known the guy who built this truck, and I know the guy who runs it, and I know the guy who oversees it. So, they're all great people. So, yeah, the truck's older than 3 years. Kevin, if you remember Keith from school, Keith built that truck when he worked there. Gonna leave names out of it, but yeah. So if you remember Keith, Keith actually built that truck before he left. So I'm gonna say more like 7 or 8 years, maybe 10 years old. Alrighty, so looks like 9 of you are currently here, 8 likes. Pretty good ratio. Everything else is looking good. I just want to make sure the stream health is where it needs to be and don't have any of that stuff. So, yeah, so you do remember Keith. Okay. Where am I saying? Okay, so we've run cables to the booth. If the camera operators need help running cables, that's also part of the video operator's job. I've had remotes where I've had to help. I've had remotes where I didn't have to help. So right now I'm 50-50. So who knows? But the one thing video operators would typically have to deal with on a live event, not in this case because the engineer took care of it, but typically you would also be responsible for plugging in your transmission feeds to the world. So typically that might be the venue, that might be a satellite truck, that might be whatever. In this case, it was actually LiveView. So these guys actually just use a LiveView extender. So this thing has 6 modems in it. It provides an Ethernet connection to a small little LiveView box, and they do a 10-second delay and a stream of 6 megabits. So, because these high schools are sometimes not in the best, cell phone areas, they do a fixed delay. It makes counting them in and out of breaks a whole lot easier. So they do a fixed 10-second delay. They do a 6 megabit stream. It's probably H.265, if I had to guess. Could be H.264. I should probably ask. But it's a pretty good stream. I mean, it looks really good. Obviously, the cameras and the truck all make great video. So then, therefore, doing a fixed delay makes it easy to count, makes it so it has plenty of error correction. I don't know if the LiveView Mini, which is the unit that actually is encoding the thing, has modems in it as well. I'm going to have to ask because I'm curious, because a lot of times those LiveView Minis have 2 modems in them. So it could be that it has 2 modems plus the 6 modems from the LiveView extender. So it could have 8 modems. But they do it this way. They've never really had issues. 10 seconds when you're doing sports and you're not doing any kind of talk back is fine. If you try doing 10 seconds with a news remote, you would probably lose your mind. But for sports, it works. If you're doing a parade, it would work. And I forget where their master control is. It's not, I don't think it's here. It's somewhere else. So, like I said, you would typically plug transmission in as well, but in this case, the engineers take care of it. So, yeah. So what do I do during the game then? So obviously we ran cables. We made sure things were plugged in correctly. And so this is my view of the game. I sit here and I look at these monitors and I'm making sure that all the cameras are adjusted to match each other. So how does that work? Well, in front of me was in this case 7 camera control units. It was designed, I think, to do 8, if memory serves me right, but it only does up to 7 now. And so basically, as part of the process, so all the camera operators get plugged in, we turn the cameras on, and then as long as they all fire up, we then do white balance, black balance, and then we check back focus, and then basically you are ready to go. You can paint the cameras if you want, which is, a little bit of green, a little bit of blue, maybe minus red, whatever you want to do to make sure the cameras look like the colors look great. White balance gets you pretty close a lot of the times, but sometimes I just kind of will, maybe throw a little bit of color here and there, because the cameras shoot the stadium at different angles. So sometimes maybe the 2 up cameras might look a certain way, and the end zone camera will look a certain way because they all have the same lens, but then that handheld has a very different lens. So even though you do a white balance on it, it looks a little bit different. And so I found myself adjusting the colors throughout the night. As basically the sun set, obviously the cameras reacted to that, but also you have to change the iris because as the sun sets, you have to open up the iris. And again, the colors change. So we did a white balance before the game started. We also did a white balance at halftime, just to make sure that we had the right color, because as the sun fades, and I'll tell you right now, in this area, and as tall as the press box was, half the field was shaded for like the first quarter. So if the ball was in a certain area, it was shaded, but the other players may not be shaded. It was a lot of fun to sit there and kind of make sure that the iris was the same or appropriate. And so how do you adjust the iris? Well, that's what the big knob does. And so you move that up and down. In that kind of second row from the bottom, you see the white and black with the red, green, and blue. Those are what I meant by color. You can kind of tweak those color knobs. You can change the neutral density filter. You can change the filter itself, which is often done about halftime because you're coming back from a break or whatever, and you want to do a star filter, and it looks cool, so you got to change the filter to be star, or in this case, cross. You got gain, which we ended up putting gain in towards the end of the broadcast just because it was dark and I couldn't get any more out of the cameras. Most of the buttons on here we didn't end up using, and we typically don't. But yeah, so a lot of running these control panels back and forth, up and down, for pretty much the whole game until about the fourth quarter. Then you're like, hey, it's not so bad. But then we had the issue where, okay, now it's the fourth quarter. The coaches are kind of going back and forth with decisions about how to, because it was a tie game at this point, and so we did a lot of coach shots. Well, the coaches were typically not in the well-lit area, so anytime the cameras went to go shoot the coach, I had to iris the camera up. When they came back to the field, I had to iris it back down, and sometimes these shots were very fast. So I need to find a way, and my goal is for this Friday, because I'm doing another game, I want to record this shot, like this shot right here, just to see, so you can kind of see how fast, moving the cameras around and whatnot is, because it was just interesting. It's a lot of work. You wouldn't think like you could just set the camera, but it's not, because you got different angles, you have different camera types, different lens types. They're shooting different things. Some things are in dark, some things are not. Like it's a lot of work, and so I need to find a way probably with my cell phone and some sort of mount where I can like just shoot this. And then I need to figure out if I can shoot or record kind of like the director's call while I'm doing it. It would be very interesting. I don't know if I can or not, but like I said, I'm going to be looking into that for Friday if possible. So in this shot earlier I showed you where I could see the different things. Up in the left-hand corner, those are the four cameras. In the bottom left-hand corner is the QC monitor, and whatever I wanted to see full, I could push down that iris control. So I could push down the big black knob, and the camera would change in the left-hand corner, and then that monitor fed a vector scope and a waveform, and that's where I could see how bright the video was or how dark it was, and adjust the iris appropriately. We don't use chip charts, but when Kevin and I learned how to do cameras back in the day, we actually would put a chip chart out there, and you could adjust the colors to match those boxes you see on the screen on the left-hand side. We don't do that. I kind of wish we did. I guess I'm old school like that. I kind of wish we still use chip charts, but I guess when you're actually building the cameras and like you're first getting them out, you obviously would do that, and then you would create a scene file, basically referencing the cameras, and then you in theory don't have to do it ever again. But yeah, so but yeah, so then like I said, I'm staring at this. I'm picking the different cameras that go down in the corner, looking at the vector scope. Obviously, some things you can just tell, hey, I need to iris that, or whatever it is. On the right-hand side, you have two more monitors that I just routed basically the same thing in, so I could see the same thing on both monitors because I was watching programs. So on the right-hand side, where it says PR1 SDI1, that's program. That's what the viewers see at home. Beneath that, in the left-hand corner of that, is the clock camera. So that was the camera I set up to shoot the clock. That's nice to kind of watch to see where we are in the game because, if the score bug, like I said, acts up, or in this case, was before the game started, it had a countdown clock until the game did start. So I put a clock camera there just to kind of keep an eye on what actually was happening in terms of the clock. And so basically you do that for the whole thing, and then when you're done, you tear down, and then everybody helps tear down. That's works outside the truck. I mean, the producer and director go home. They're paid employees. They've been working all day, so they go home, and then the camera guys, the video guys, the audio guys, they all tear down. And I thought it was interesting. In this case, this truck is an Expando, so you can see here the part with the ladder is actually sticking out, and at the end of the night, it goes in, and so it slides in, so it's called an Expando. And then here you see on the right-hand side that truck, that was the equipment truck. So this big truck is so heavy, it can't carry equipment. Like, it's kind of at its max weight. There also isn't a whole lot of space to put equipment because the way it collapses in on itself, there really isn't a whole lot of space inside that's not being used by furniture or equipment. So all the cameras, the scaffolding, a lot of the wires, they ride in that second truck. And this first truck, the big truck here, requires a commercial driver's license. The other one does not. So the engineer actually drives the other truck, and then they have a professional truck driver who drives the big truck. So I kind of found that interesting. All right, so camera's a little high tonight. All right, so Kevin says we used those in Columbus or Cleveland. No problem, David. Thanks for being here. Yeah, pretty much every shot change required a video change. It's a lot of work. I will say I was very surprised at how busy I was. I'll just, you know, Mike, welcome in. I don't think I've seen you be here before, so if I have, I'm sorry, but welcome in. Yeah, I could, you could say that. My goal, the whole broadcast, was to, you know, have the director and producer say the phrase "shade one" or "shade two" as few as times as possible. um, they probably said it 5, 6 times maybe throughout the night. Maybe a couple more than that, but it was definitely less than 10, I would think. And so I think I did pretty good. It's only my second time running video, first time in basically 9 months. So I'm sure this Friday will go differently. I also had a trainee. Or I should say, I had a shadow on Friday. So I had to do. Not only did I have to run the cables and stuff, but I had to explain what I was doing and why I was doing it, and that slowed me down a little bit. So I only got about a half-hour lunch break instead of a typical like 45 to an hour. That's what you typically would get. My lunch break was a little bit shorter because we weren't ready to go. So, Jeremy says, "Ahoy from Sydney." Well, welcome in, Jeremy. It's what, probably 7 a.m. in the morning over there, I think. Aren't you like 12 hours or something ahead? I don't know if I'd call that the B unit, that truck with the equipment. I mean, I guess technically speaking, it is a B unit. So what Kevin is referring to is basically in this shot, the big truck would be the A unit, and then the equipment truck would be called the B unit, and they work in pairs. So when you watch like Monday Night Football, it's not one truck. It's actually 4 or 5 trucks working together as one truck. And they would typically have, Monday Night Football 1, or sorry, 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, maybe even 1E. And all the trucks together make up the Monday Night Football truck. In this case, this is a standalone truck. It doesn't need anything else. But the equipment truck has to go with it. So in this case, the equipment truck would be the quote B unit because it has to go with the A unit. It can't work by itself. The A unit can't work without the B unit because it had no cameras. So, good point. Ace says it's a lot bigger from that angle. It's 30. Oh, is it 33 feet? I forget how big the truck is now. I want to say it's 33 or 37. Gosh, I wish I remembered how big the truck was. Michael says, first time tuning in live. You don't have time to watch the creators. I just live in chat. Well, thank you. I appreciate you being here. Glad you could make it. There are currently 11 of you watching right now, and there are 10 likes, so I appreciate that. Training and running. Well, not only does it training and obviously running V1, but it also was hot as hell. And I don't really like warm weather unless I'm swimming. So having to work in extremely hot heat was not fun. And I think this Friday's forecast is no different. What is the forecast? Hold on a second. This Friday's forecast is 91. So actually it's warmer this Friday than it was last Friday. And as of right now, there's a chance of storms, so that ought to be fun. Sports loves storms because we can't do a football game in lightning. Jeremy says it's currently 11:52 a.m. Holy crap. So it's 14 hours in front of us. Okay. David says, I once spent a week in Sydney on a business trip and really liked it. Just have to interact all the, had the beach. No, well, that's different. I bet you do. Oh yeah, the heat makes it worse. I'm curious what gigs you're doing. Are you still working for that company? I think you are. So text me. Let me know what you're doing. I'd love to know. I love working in the rains. Said nobody ever. Um, I mean, so I don't know for a fact, but I'm pretty sure that lens is like a six-figure lens. It can't get wet. So if we're gonna have rain in the forecast, that's gonna mean a whole lot more work because you got to cover up that lens. Um, Here we go. No longer available. Well, crap. Trying to find the price. B&H no longer sells that lens. Hmm. Oh, there's an eBay listing. I wonder what eBay says. Well, let's this way. A 22x is $7,800 on eBay. A 27 is $16,000 on eBay. I once heard at a remote, and I could be wrong, but I'm betting money. Kevin can vouch for this. But I once heard at a remote that one of those got dropped, and the engineer told the camera guy who was running that camera that he would not be putting that lens up himself because that lens costs six figures, and that he would not let the camera guy put the lens on the camera himself. And the engineer made a point of like, I will help you do that. So when you get ready to do that, you come find me because it's cost six figures. So that's what I've been told. It's probably close. When I was learning how to run camera, or helping my dad, I should say, when I was a kid, and I mean like I was 13 or 14, I helped my dad with a concert he was doing at his station. For those who don't know, my dad worked in television for 42 years. It's where I fell in love with television, and it's why I followed his footsteps. So as a kid, I'd go help him out, and he was working a concert one time, and I was running. I don't recall running the camera, but apparently I did. But I do recall at the end of the night, you know, we tore everything down, and I went to go like grab that kind of a lens and pass it down because we were like on a platform, and my dad was like, "No, you're not touching that. It costs more than our house." So, I've had two people tell me basically that that lens is expensive. Yeah, most box lenses are six figures. Yeah, David, you're probably not buying that kind of lens. I don't know that you're your YouTube channel needs that kind of lens. Yeah, I would not. I would not. I'd have a lot of questions if I was buying a 5,000 or five-figure lens off of eBay. I would have a lot of questions. That's a good question. What is the limit on PayPal protection? Yeah, Kevin has run camera. He's had to build those before. I've never actually built a camera. I really do want to obviously do it at some point, but I never had the time to do it because usually whenever I'm on a remote, I'm working and I'm not in charge of that camera. So therefore, I really should, I really should go build one sometime. Yes, the gig was Music on the Stars. You ran camera for that, huh? Well, I would have been like 14 or 15, so I'm guessing you weren't there when I was there. Um, I also got a funny story about how we used to have, or they didn't have a live truck. And this was back in the 90s, so like they didn't have live view or whatever it was. So they literally had to take a microwave dish, like dish, 3 foot wide dish, and they had to put it on the roof of the concert hall. And so basically, they put it there at the beginning of the season, and they took it down at the end of the season. Well, it was the end of the season, so we had to go pull it down. And so here we are walking around this roof, and like there's like this half slanted thing, and we're like up there crawling around, and it's raining at night because of course it always rains. Um, I just remember going, "Wow, this is definitely interesting and a view people don't usually get to see." And I think that was one of the things that kind of sparked my interest. Like TV gets to go places and see things that nobody else gets to see, so this is kind of cool. Welcome back, Krish. Yep, way back when. So my dad was in charge. Well, yeah, I don't know if he was in charge, but he. What year was that, Kevin? Do you remember? In case you haven't noticed the theme, people don't like TV. People don't like working in the rain. We have to work in the rain, but we don't like it. Yeah, we go to some places. I remember also at that event we had the stereo microphone at the top of the concert thing, or what do you call it? The shell, the concert shell, and we had to go up there and lower that thing down, and that was a very interesting place to go. Toro's here. Welcome in, Toro. Oh yeah, he was there. He was. I think he might have been running video. Honestly, he might have been running video. I don't think he ever ran audio, but he was probably running video. Um, that actually sounds familiar. Late '90s. Okay. So you were probably like what, 18? Oh, sorry. You were like what, 18, 19? And um, so yeah. Anybody have any other questions? Like I said, this. I don't know if we talked about this before. I know we talked about this before, but here's um, the racks inside the truck. And so if you can see on the left-hand side, those monitors, that's where I sit. So I look to my right, and this is everything that's right to my right. Um, I could go through and explain what everything is, or for the most part, but I don't know that people are that interested in it. But basically, this is all the equipment that makes the truck works. It's a very interesting design truck. It's, I think, one of the coolest design trucks I've seen because it's the smallest truck that I've ever seen that has an expando, and it's got a lot of room inside. And one of the thing I like about this truck that I really just I think is awesome is let me see here on. Can I show you this picture? This is from last year. You see, this is the other side of the truck, and those doors are the back of this rack. So if you ever have to change anything, you open up those doors, and you can see the back of the rack. And then one thing I also find interesting about this truck that is different than most trucks is this truck has its own generator. So a lot of these production trucks don't run with a generator. You have to bring a generator or have power on site. Well, this truck is designed to go to high school stadiums, and most high school stadiums don't have three-phase power available at their press box to plug a big truck in. So this truck actually has its own generator. And so for the size of this truck, for what it's designed to do, the fact that it has its own generator, like, I think this is one of the coolest trucks, in my opinion. Oh, you did it for 2 summers? Yeah, so I'd love to see pictures. I have not actually seen pictures of Music Under the Stars, like, ever. So if you have pictures, I would absolutely love to see those, because I did that for a couple years. And of course, we didn't take pictures back then like we do now. So, because I didn't have one of these in my pocket. So I think I said earlier, maybe you missed it. There is actually a truck driver who has a CDL, and his job is to drive the truck to the stadium and then drive the truck home. And as far as I can tell, that's all he does. Because this truck is a dual axle truck, you have to, my God, get back to the freaking thing. So because it has dual axles in the back, you have to have a CDL to drive this truck. They have another truck that does not have two axles, and therefore does not require a CDL, but this one does because it has two axles. Let me see if I can find. I know I have some specs on it. I just got to go find it. I can tell you, when this truck is used for the playoffs, they do 7 manned cameras. Two were handheld. They had an RF handheld plus a booth, and they had 4 locked down beauty cameras, 2 tunnel cameras, and 2 crowd cameras. So. Yeah, all in all, they said they had 15 cameras that made air. So this truck can support quite a bit, which is why I think it's awfully cool. And then I think, for those maybe you don't, do I have a picture inside? I have a picture somewhere. I put together a slideshow, but of course I didn't do a very good job. Here's what it looks like inside. That's the producer and the director. Producer's closer to the camera, director's farther away. It does feature, so here's a here's the shot basically of the front bench is what's called. It does have replay and a score bug. So the score bug operator is on the left-hand side. The font operator sits there. And then it has replay, which I don't know where's my replay photo? Oh, so it has replay. And it's actually interesting, and maybe Kevin, you can explain or maybe tell me why. I do find it interesting. So this truck has an EVS, which is the kind of the standard replay machine, but it also has a Z-Play, which is kind of like your cheaper alternative. So it has both the kind of standard replay machine. It also has a cheaper replay machine. And I say cheaper because there's no such thing as cheap replay. If you want to do replay, it's going to cost you money. Period. A says that is dense to me at least. Yeah, so Kevin says you should show pictures. So yeah, I just did show the switcher at least. It's a big switcher. It's honestly, it to me it seems like it's overkill. But I mean that's what they have. So so yeah, so like I said, there's the switcher on the right hand side. 4ME basically, Grass Valley Cayenne, I believe is what it is. And then for the audio, they use a Yamaha, is that a CL5 I think it is? It's got Dante, Maddie, and then of course analog. And just to kind of show you how cool this design is, this is the audio board. That picture is right behind the director. So to the right of the director, behind that wall, is the audio board. So just to kind of show you how, kind of give you a better layout of the actual truck. And then to the right, where that replay operator and graphic people sit, that's the expando. So that slides in, which is why there's not a whole lot of room, because the only place you could actually store stuff in the truck would be where these people are sitting right here. And they actually do. They have a bay where they can open up the floor or the wall and slide cables in to kind of be where these people are sitting. So very different design, but I think it's very cool design. Especially for as small as the truck is in terms of a physical footprint. So the truck requires a CDL because it's tandem axle and it's over 13 tons. I forget how. I'm trying to figure out. I'm looking through my emails to see if I can figure out what the length is. He told me at one point. I guess I can't find it quick enough. I'm pretty sure it was 33 feet. That sticks out in my head. All right, so a Jenny with a radiator, yeah. So the other truck, does not require a CDL, and so the engineer actually drives the other truck back with the equipment. Actually, I have a picture. So here's a better picture of that truck being loaded up. So this is the equipment truck that doesn't require a CDL, and so this is what the engineer drives to and from the event. Yeah, he's a nice guy. I th- um, didn't the local cable company that shall remain nameless use Zplay as well? I feel like it did. Yeah, Kevin agrees. That switcher is huge for that truck. Huge. Oh, Grish. So is it the CL5? I think it's because I think my church uses the CL3, and this I think is the CL5. That's because it's slightly bigger. It has more faders. Yeah. Okay. CL5. I thought it was. Micah says the truck I was looking at did not require a CDL. If you get the exact. Um, yeah. Like I said, the truck in question here is I think 13. He says 13 ton. So that requires dual axle, and therefore, yes, it's tandem axle and over 13 tons. So that requires the CDL. Like I said, I'm pretty sure it was 35 feet, 33 feet, something like that. I'll have to ask on Friday. I know it exists somewhere in my messages. I just can't find it. In fact, I have messages that are missing. That might explain why I can't find it. Yeah. Anyway, um, any other questions? Gonna probably start wrapping this up. Like I said, I'm gonna try to get some video, maybe audio this week. At least show you kind of what, how busy things are. Um, we'll see if I can. No promises. Um, I do. This weekend, this week will also be interesting because he told me that it's a 600-foot run, 600-foot cable run, and if you remember earlier, cables can only go 300 feet, 328 to be exact. So a 600-foot cable run requires fiber, and I'm not sure what that actually entitles or involves. I mean, entails. I should be. Yeah. So we'll see. So it might have a different story to tell next week about fiber and rain and storms and who knows. Yeah, no, like I said, I'm gonna see what they say. I'm obviously not gonna do it unless I have permission. Uh, so I might have to just take a video and then like delete the audio. We'll see. I mean, I don't know. Fiber can actually bend more than people think it can. You obviously don't want to bend it very sharp, but I don't need like super wide radiuses. I bet if we had used a decimator, we wouldn't have had the issues we had on Friday. Because I bet money the decimator puts out a stronger signal than the Black Magic. That's for sure. And then there actually are you can do data video has inline SDI boosters. So if you have a long cable run like 600 feet, you actually can put a power supply on the sending end, an inline booster that'll take that power off the cable and then boost the signal, and then put the power back on the cable, and you can do three or four off one power supply. So that saved my bacon when I was doing a presidential event, and we were told to park in one place. We ran cable to that place, and then the Secret Service showed up and said, "What the hell are you doing here?" and made us move to the other end of the building. And I did not have fiber at the time, nor did I run fiber. So I had no way to extend my cable run into the building. But luckily, the competition had these data video boxes, and they could use that to boost the signal. And luckily, because engineers are always friendly with each other, he gave me the extra set that he had, and I used his data booster or data video boosters to get my cable run to work. Otherwise, we would have been completely dead in the water because the Secret Service made us move. So I don't know, Joe, if you've ever needed those or not, but if you do need a long coax run, look up data video, and I believe they're the SDI boosters. Yeah, I mean, we weren't, I'm sure I have fiber at the station, but I've never run fiber for cameras. Um, so that's why I'm just curious to see what when he says we're running fiber, what that means. I mean, I have my ideas about what it means, but I'm just curious to actually see what it means. And yes, absolutely, 328 feet is theoretical. But like I said, I think the cable we were using was 300 feet, but I think that was 300 feet to the I/O panel, and then obviously in the truck from the I/O panel to the frame sync, there is more cable. Is it 28 feet of cable? Probably not. It was probably like 10 or 15 feet, maybe 18 feet. Either way, that's a pretty close to that theoretical limit. And then, of course, you add in the fact that it's black magic, and maybe, that's why it didn't work. Um, I'm also guessing that the cable inside the truck is not the same as the truck cable that we were using outside. And so I don't know if the cable in the truck is the same standard or quality as the truck cable we were using outside. I don't know. So I would just be guessing. The data boosters, I'm guessing you're referring to? Opticon, yep. I think that's what SEMTI uses. Yes, and of course at that point we were, like I said, we were making a connection at the I/O panels, so we had to go from the kind of the thicker Belden 1505 to whatever they were using internally. And I'm guessing in order to save weight and space, it's probably the small micro BNC cable, or sorry, the small micro coax cable, which is good. I mean, it's obviously good stuff, but I don't know that it's designed to go 328 feet. So I'd be guessing. Oh, camera fiber with lunchboxes. Yes. In golf, in golf you run a lot of fiber around a golf course because it's so big. I have pictures of that. We should probably, if I could easily find them, I would share them, but I don't know where they are right now. I'd have to go digging, and I don't really want to do that right now. Yeah, yeah. Well, sorry, hold on. Sorry, I'm just like I said. This whatever crud I have is still here. Um, I forget where I read it. Somebody told me, or somebody in an article they have a fiber team. So, like when they do golf, like the big golf tournaments, like the A team is here, and then like there's a team out front. Like before they go to like the next broadcast, like there's always a team in front of them. So like the B team is out ahead of them, like already running fiber for the next venue, and then I guess they flip off. So like the fiber that goes to this venue then gets shipped 2 weeks ahead, and so they rotate like A B, but there's always a team going out, putting the fiber down, so when the trucks show up, the trucks can just plug in and start doing television as opposed to running fiber. And then so they're always shipping that stuff around is what I read somewhere. Yeah, there's a whole fiber truck. Yep. And fiber team apparently from what I was reading. Um, Coiling it back sounds. Yeah, running the fiber probably is pretty straightforward. Coiling it back up is not fun. But if you can't coil a cable while walking, then you should probably practice coiling cable. Because I can pretty much walk at a pace where, as long as the cable is just there on the ground, I can coil it and walk at the same time and not really slow down. The problem is cable's never just there. It's always tangled up or taped up or tied up or all the above. Welcome in, Ernesto. Yeah, I was live last week. I'm finally able to do live live streams again. I was down for the count for a while there, but yeah, I've been back. This is my second week back, um, and as far as I'm aware, I should be back. Oh, wait, next Monday's Labor Day, right? Yeah, I'm not sure if I'll be here on Labor Day or not. I'm not. I'll have to figure that out. Um, Hold on a second. All right. Well, I should probably wrap this up because my cough's getting worse. I think Kevin agrees. Walk in coil cable. You got to be able to do that. So anyway, thank you all for being here tonight. I really do appreciate it. Micah says, I have heard some sports that they cut and trash fiber once done. Um, Possibly. That seems awfully expensive. um, that was not what I read, but I mean, it probably depends on the team. It depends on the sport. Depends on how it was installed. Um, I mean, I guess if you were running the cheap yellow fiber, it might make more sense to do that. But the fiber that I'm talking about is usually uh, Kevlar covered, like armored fiber cable, and I'm guessing you're not throwing that stuff away after one event. Yeah, Kevin says no. Yeah, um, the cable that I'm talking about is Kevlar covered and is a pretty penny, and you would use that as many times as possible, um, and you might even pay to cut the end off and re-terminate it if there's an issue, because it's expensive stuff. But anyway, like I said, thank you guys for being here. I will see you guys later. I may be back next Monday, maybe Tuesday. We'll figure it out. You know where to find me. I will post an update when I decide what I'm doing next week, but hopefully we'll be back next week. So thank you guys.